What happens when a fugitive alien noblewoman crashes into a human mechanic's life with a wild ultimatum? Marry me in 3 days, or I'm a dead woman. Jake Harlan's just trying to fix ships on the lawless Nova. 7 station when Zarael offers him riches, protection, and nights hotter than a supernova. But with galactic enforcers and rebel assassins closing in, can this fake marriage fool the galaxy, or ignite a real spark that'll burn them both? Dive into this pulse-pounding sci-fi tale of survival, seduction, and human grit now. Welcome to Alien Whisper, where sizzling hot alien women and emotional sci-fi alien stories await you. If you enjoy thrilling adventures between humans and extraterrestrial beings, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below the video. Now, let's dive into the story. Jake Harlan wiped the sweat from his brow, the humid air of Nova 7's hangar thick with the scent of oil and metal. He was elbow-deep in the guts of a Class C freighter, trying to coax life back into its failing hyperdrive. The station's gravity was on the fritz again, making his tools float annoyingly out of reach every few minutes. "Rusty, can you keep an eye on the grav plates?" he muttered to his AI assistant, who was currently manifesting as a holographic wrench floating nearby. "On it, boss," Rusty replied, his voice crackling with static, "though I don't know why you bother. This station's falling apart faster than a cheap android in a sandstorm." Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, well, someone got to keep it running. Might as well be me." Nova 7 was a relic of a bygone era, once a bustling trade hub, but now a pit stop for smugglers, pirates, and those seeking anonymity on the galaxy's edge. The hangar was a cacophony of clanging metal and hissing steam, a testament to the station's age and neglect. Jake had been here for 2 years, ever since he left Earth behind after a string of dead-end jobs and a relationship that ended in flames. Out here, he was just another face in the crowd, which suited him fine. He didn't need friends, didn't need complications, just his tools, his AI, and the occasional bottle of synthetic whiskey to keep the loneliness at bay. But today was different. Today, something or someone had caught his attention. The hangar doors hissed open, and a figure stepped through that made Jake's wrench slip from his grasp. She was tall, with skin that shimmered like polished silver and hair that flowed like liquid fire. Her eyes were a piercing violet, and she wore a form-fitting suit that seemed to be made of some kind of liquid metal, clinging to her athletic frame. Every step she took was precise, almost predatory, as if she were a hunter assessing her prey. She stopped in front of Jake, her gaze locking onto his. "Jake Harlan, human engineer," she said, her voice low and melodic, with a slight accent that made his name sound exotic. "I require your assistance." Jake blinked, picking up his wrench. "Sure. What can I do for you?" She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. "I need you to marry me. Immediately." He stared at her, waiting for the punchline. When none came, he laughed nervously. "Lady, I'm just a mechanic on a backwater station. What makes you think I'm the right guy for this?" Her expression remained serious. "According to Galactic law, as a widow of House Thalarin, I must enter into a new marriage within 72 standard hours of my husband's death, or I will forfeit my title, my lands, and my freedom. I will be sold into servitude on the mining colonies of Draken V." Jake's smile faded. "That's harsh." "It is the law," she said simply. "I have chosen you because you have no political affiliations, no family ties, and no significant debts. You are uncomplicated." He raised an eyebrow. "Gee, thanks. So, I'm your best bet because I'm a nobody." "Essentially," she replied, without a hint of apology. Jake scratched his head, looking around the hangar as if expecting someone to jump out and say it was a prank. But the only sounds were the distant hum of the station's engines and the occasional clank of metal. "Look, I'm flattered, really, but I'm not sure I'm cut out for marriage, especially not to an alien noblewoman." She stepped closer, her presence commanding. "This is not about love or companionship. It is a legal necessity. In return, I offer you citizenship in the Thalarin Alliance, access to my house's resources, and protection under my name. You will want for nothing." He considered her offer, his mind racing. It was crazy, but then again, his life on Nova 7 wasn't exactly thrilling. What's the catch? The catch, she said, is that we must convince the authorities that our marriage is genuine. There will be inspections, questions, perhaps even biometric scans to verify our bond. Jake whistled. So, it's not just a piece of paper. We have to act like a real couple. Precisely. He leaned against the freighter, crossing his arms. And if we don't convince them, then I am lost, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For the first time, he saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. Jake sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, let's say I agree. What happens next? She produced a small, sleek device from her pocket, a holographic tablet. With a few taps, a contract appeared in the air between them, written in a language he didn't recognize, but with a translation scrolling beneath it. You signed this, and we are legally bound as spouses under Galactic law. He scanned the document, his eyes widening at the terms. Wait, it says here that we have to share quarters. Yes, she said matter-of-factly. It is expected that married couples live together. Jake felt his cheeks heat up. And the bed? Her brow furrowed. Bed? Oh, you mean sleeping arrangements. Yes, typically, spouses share a bed. But if that is uncomfortable for you, I can arrange for separate sleeping pods. He waved a hand. No, it's fine. I just wasn't expecting all this. She nodded, her expression softening slightly. I understand this is sudden, but time is of the essence. I have less than 72 hours. Jake looked at her, really looked at her, taking in her alien beauty and the desperation that she tried so hard to hide. He thought about his own life, the endless days of fixing ships for ungrateful clients, the loneliness that gnawed at him late at night. Maybe this was his chance for something different, something exciting. All right, he said finally. I'll do it. Her shoulders relaxed, and she smiled for the first time, a small, grateful smile that made his heart skip a beat. Thank you, Jake Harlan. You will not regret this. He grinned back, trying to lighten the mood. Well, if I do, at least I'll have a fancy alien wife to blame. She tilted her head, confused. Blame? For what? He laughed. Never mind. Let's get this contract signed. She handed him the tablet, and he pressed his thumb to the screen, the device scanning his biometric signature. A soft chime indicated that the marriage was now official. Congratulations, Rusty said dryly from behind them. You're now hitched to an alien princess. Nice work, Jake. Zar-El glanced at the AI, her eyes narrowing. Is that your assistant? Yeah, that's Rusty. He's helpful in his own way. Rusty flickered, forming into a humanoid shape. Charm, I'm sure. So, when's the honeymoon? Jake shot him a look. Rusty, not now. Zar-El ignored the AI, turning back to Jake. We should proceed to your quarters. I need to familiarize myself with your living space, and we must begin preparing for the inspection. Right? Jake said, grabbing his toolkit. Follow me. They arrived at Jake's quarters, a small, cramped room with a single bed, a desk cluttered with tools and spare parts, and a viewport that offered a view of the station's docking bay. It was modest, to say the least, but it was home. Zar-El looked around, her expression unreadable. This is where you live. Yeah, Jake said, scratching the back of his neck. It's not much, but it's mine. She nodded, setting down her bag, a small, high-tech container that probably held all her worldly possessions. It will suffice. Jake watched as she began to unpack, pulling out items that were clearly alien. A glowing orb that pulsed with light, a set of blades that looked wickedly sharp, and what appeared to be a holographic projector. You can put your stuff on the desk, he offered. Thank you, she said, arranging her belongings neatly. There was an awkward silence as they both stood there, unsure of what to do next. So, Jake said, breaking the tension, since we're married now, maybe we should get to know each other a bit better. She looked at him, her violet eyes curious. What do you wish to know? Well, for starters, what's life like on Thalarin? I've never been there. Her face softened slightly. Thalarin is a beautiful planet, with vast oceans and towering mountains. Our cities are built into the cliffs, with bridges connecting them. It is a place of great natural beauty and rich culture. Sounds amazing, Jake said. Why did you leave? Her expression darkened. I did not leave by choice. My husband was killed in a political uprising, and I was forced to flee to avoid being captured by his enemies. Jake's eyes widened. I'm sorry to hear that. She shrugged. It is in the past. Now, I must focus on securing my future. Right, he said. And that's where I come in. Exactly. Another silence fell between them, but this time it was less awkward, more contemplative. Jake decided to lighten the mood. So, since we're married, does that mean I get to call you my wife? She blinked, surprised. I suppose so. Is the customary term. He grinned. Cool. And you can call me your husband. Husband, she repeated, as if testing the word. It is interesting. Jake laughed. Yeah, it's a bit weird for me too, but I guess we'll get used to it. She smiled faintly. Perhaps. Just then, Rusty's voice echoed from the intercom. Hey, lovebirds, you might want to check the news feed. There's something about a Thalaran noblewoman on the run. Jake and Zurael exchanged a look, and Jake quickly activated the holoscreen on his desk. The screen flickered to life, showing a news report from the Galactic network. Breaking news. Lady Zurael of House Thalaran, widow of the late Lord Varen, is wanted for questioning in connection with a recent uprising on Thalaran. Authorities believe she may have information regarding the location of rebel leaders. If you have any information on her whereabouts, please contact the nearest security station. Jake turned to Zurael, his face pale. Is that you? She nodded grimly. Yes. It seems my enemies are still pursuing me. Great, Jake muttered. So, not only am I married to an alien noblewoman, but she's also a fugitive. I did not lie to you, she said defensively. I am indeed a widow in need of a husband to maintain my status. The rest is complications. Complications? Jake exclaimed. They're after you. What if they come here? She placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. They will not find me here. Nova 7 is outside their jurisdiction, and I have taken precautions to conceal my identity. Jake took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. All right, but we need to be careful. If they find out you're here, we're both in trouble. I understand, she said. That is why our marriage must appear legitimate. If the authorities believe we are truly bonded, they may be less likely to investigate further. He nodded slowly. So, we need to act like a real couple. Yes, she agreed. Which means we must learn about each other, share our lives, and perhaps even share our bed. Jake felt his face heat up again. Right? About that. She raised an eyebrow. Is there a problem? No, no problem, he said quickly. It's just, I'm not used to sharing my space with anyone, let alone someone I just met. I understand, she said, but it is necessary. We can set boundaries if you wish. He thought for a moment. Yeah, that might be good. Like I'll stay on my side, you stay on yours. Agreed, she said, though there was a hint of amusement in her voice. After dinner in the mess hall, where Zarael tried synth steak and found it intriguing, they returned to Jake's quarters. To ease the tension, Jake suggested watching a movie. I've got a collection of classic Earth films, he said, pulling up the holoscreen. Ever seen anything from Earth? Zarael shook her head. No, but I am curious. What do you recommend? How about The Princess Bride? It's a classic with adventure, romance, and plenty of humor. She nodded. That sounds acceptable. They sat on the bed, side by side, as the movie began. Jake explained some cultural references, like what a rodent of unusual size was and why Wesley was mostly dead. Zarael watched intently, her eyes wide with fascination. At one point, during the sword fight between Inigo and Wesley, she leaned forward, her hand gripping Jake's arm. This is exhilarating, she whispered. Jake smiled, enjoying her reaction. Yeah, it's a great scene. When the movie ended, Zarael turned to him, her expression thoughtful. Your people have such rich storytelling traditions. It is impressive. Thanks, Jake said, feeling a swell of pride. We do have a lot of great stories. She hesitated, then said, perhaps one day I can show you some Thalaran tales. I'd like that, he replied sincerely. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the only sound the hum of the station's engines. Then Zarael stood up, stretching. Jake woke to the clatter of metal, his eyes squinting against the dim glow of Nova 7's artificial lights. He expected Rusty, his AI assistant, to be tinkering with tools again, but instead, Zarael stood in the center of his cramped quarters, clutching a frying pan like it was an alien artifact. "Morning," Jake mumbled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "What's with the pan?" Zarael turned, her violet eyes wide with confusion. "I was attempting to prepare a meal, as spouses do together. But this device is unfamiliar." She held the frying pan upside down, inspecting it. Jake chuckled, swinging his legs off the bed. "That's a frying pan. You cook food with it on the stove." She glanced at the electric hot plate on the counter, then back at the pan. "How does it function?" "Here, let me show you." Jake shuffled over, taking the pan from her. "You turn on the heat like this." He twisted the knob, and the hot plate glowed red. Zarael leaned in, her fiery red hair brushing his arm. "And then you add oil or something to cook with. Got any food on you?" She nodded and retrieved a small container from her sleek, metallic bag. "Thalaran rations. Nutrient-rich and efficient." Jake peeked inside, seeing gray cubes that looked like compressed gravel. "Oh, okay. We can try those, but let's mix in some human stuff." He grabbed a box of cereal and a jug of milk from his cabinet. "This is cereal. You pour it in a bowl, add milk, and eat with a spoon." Zarael eyed the colorful flakes warily, but nodded. "I will try it." Jake set up 2 bowls, and they sat at the tiny table. Zarael took a cautious bite, her face scrunching as she chewed. "It is crunchy. The liquid adds an odd texture. Not unpleasant." "High praise," Jake grinned. "Now, your turn." He popped a ration cube into his mouth. It tasted like metal and regret. "Wow, that's efficient," he said, forcing a smile. Zarael's lips twitched. Flavor is not a priority. Nutrition is. Yeah, humans are big on flavor. We use spices, salt, pepper, herbs to make food taste good. Spices? Her head tilted, curious. Stuff that adds kick. I'll show you later. Rusty's voice crackled through the intercom. "Morning, lovebirds. How's married life?" "Jake, you're living with a hot alien chick. Gotta be better than fixing freighters." Zarael frowned. "What is he saying?" Jake sighed. "Rusty's teasing us. He's got a weird sense of humor." "Teasing?" she asked. "It's when someone jokes to get a reaction." Jake explained. "Like saying something not totally serious." "I see. He is attempting humor." She nodded, as if filing away a fact. "Exactly," Jake said, glaring at the intercom. "Knock it off, Rusty." "Touchy, touchy." Rusty laughed, his synthesized voice echoing. "Just trying to loosen you up. You're stiffer than a rusted bolt." "We're not stiff," Jake shot back. "We're adjusting." "Yes, adjusting," Zarael agreed. "There's much to learn about each other's ways. Like why humans stick pictures on walls." She pointed at a faded poster of an Earth rock band, its edges curling. Jake scratched his neck, embarrassed. "That's just Acor. I like their music." "Music?" Her head tilted again. "Songs, melodies. Don't Thalaran have music?" "Of course. Ours is vibrational, resonating with our bodies. We use crystal instruments." "Sounds cool," Jake said. "You gotta show me sometime." "Perhaps," she said, a small smile forming. After breakfast, Jake decided to give Zarael a tour of Nova 7. "Let's check out the station. See what you're working with." They stepped into the corridor, a chaotic mix of aliens and humans bustling past. A 3-eyed vendor haggled over glowing orbs, while a tentacled creature dragged a crate. Zarael's eyes widened. "This place is disorderly." Jake laughed. "Yeah, it's a mess, but it's home." They wandered to the market district, where stalls offered everything from tech to exotic pets. Jake pointed at a fruit stall. "Those are from Xerxes, supposed to be sweet." Zarael studied the spiky, purple fruits. "I have not seen such things." "Want to try one?" Jake asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." Jake bought 2, handing her one. She bit into it, her face lighting up. "This is delightful." "Told ya," Jake said, munching his own. "Nova 7's got some gems." As they strolled, they bumped into Max, a burly human lounging outside the bar. "Yo, Jake." "Who's the lady?" he called, eyeing Zarael. "This is Zarael," Jake said. She's staying with me. Max's eyebrows shot up. Staying, huh? Something you ain't telling me. Jake's cheeks burned. It's not like that. We're just roommates. Sure, roommates, Max winked. Welcome to Nova 7, Zarael. Need anything? I'm your guy. Zarael bowed slightly. Thank you, Max. Your kindness is noted. As they walked away, Jake muttered, Great. Now everyone's going to think we're a thing. But we are a thing, Zarael said, puzzled. We are married. Yeah, but on Earth, marriage is more than a contract. It's about love, commitment. Her eyes softened. So for humans, it is emotional, not just legal. Exactly, Jake said. That's why your proposal threw me. Perhaps it can grow into more, she said quietly. Jake blinked, caught off guard. You think so? She smiled, her eyes warm. We shall see. Back in the quarters, they tackled the upcoming inspection. Jake paced, nervous. What do they check during these things? Zarael sat on the bed, legs crossed elegantly. They ensure we live together, share a bed, and show intimacy. They may ask about our routines, our bond. Intimacy, Jake stopped. Like, how intimate? She tilted her head. Physical affection. Holding hands, perhaps kissing. Jake groaned. So, I gotta act like I'm in love with you? You need not act, she said softly. But we must convince them. All right, let's practice. How do Thalorans show affection? We hold hands, touch faces, share breaths. Share breaths. Jake raised an eyebrow. We breathe each other's air, showing trust. Jake chuckled. Humans don't do that. We kiss, hug, hold hands. Heesh. Her eyes widened. Pressing lips together? Yeah, it's a couple thing. She nodded slowly. We should practice that, too. Jake's heart skipped. Let's start with holding hands. He offered his hand, and she took it, her cool, smooth skin sending a jolt through him. Her fingers trembled slightly. Like this? She asked, staring at their hands. Yup, Jake said, his voice tight. They sat, hands clasped, until Rusty's voice cut in. Ah, so cute. I'm jealous, and I'm just code. Jake rolled his eyes. Rusty, zip it. Why does he say that? Zarael asked. He's messing with us, Jake said. Ignore him. What is jealous? She pressed. When you want what someone else has, Jake explained. Like if I had a better ship, you might be jealous. I see. Rusty pretends to want our bond. Pretty much, Jake said, grinning. Zarael smiled back. He is amusing. That evening, Jake decided to teach Zarael a human dish. Spaghetti with tomato sauce. He filled a pot with water. Boil this for the pasta. She nodded, watching closely. I understand. He chopped onions and garlic, the sharp scent filling the air. These add flavor. They smell strong, she said, wrinkling her nose. Yeah, but they're great cooked. He showed her how to stir the onions and garlic in a pan, then added tomatoes and spices. When the pasta was ready, he drained it. Your turn, he said, handing her the spoon. Stir the sauce. She stirred too hard, splashing sauce everywhere. Oh, easy. Jake laughed, guiding her hand. Gentle like this. She adjusted, stirring smoothly. This is not so hard. You're a natural, he said. They mixed the pasta and sauce, sitting down to eat. Zarael took a bite, her face thoughtful. The textures are bold. I like it. Score 1 for human food, Jake said. They chatted about Thaloran festivals and Earth holidays, the conversation flowing easily. For a moment, their marriage felt real. Then Rusty's voice broke in. Lovebirds, check the news. Something about a Thaloran noblewoman on the run. Jake's stomach dropped. He activated the holo screen, and Zarael's image appeared, labeled a fugitive wanted for questioning about a Thaloran uprising. Is that you? Jake asked, paling. She nodded grimly. Yes, my enemies pursue me. So, I'm married to a fugitive? Jake muttered. I did not lie, she said, defensive. The rest is complications. Complications? Jake exclaimed. What if they come here? Her hand touched his arm, warm and steady. Nova 7 is outside their reach. I've hidden my identity. Jake exhaled shakily. We gotta be careful. If they find you, we're toast. I know, she said. Our marriage must seem real to protect us. So, we play the happy couple, Jake said. Yes, we share lives, a bed, everything. Jake's face heated. Right, the bed. Is there an issue? She asked, eyebrow raised. Nope, he said quickly. Just not used to sharing space. We can set boundaries, she offered, amused. Like, I stay on my side, you on yours, he said. Agreed, she said, smiling. That night, they reached for the same side of the bed, laughing awkwardly. I sleep here, Jake said. My apologies, Zarael said, moving to the other side. They lay stiffly, inches apart, but as the station's hum lulled them, Jake felt her warmth, comforting and strange. Maybe this could work. Jake Harlan leaned back on his cot, the faint hum of Nova 7's engines a familiar backdrop. His communicator's holographic screen glowed, displaying a playlist of Earth songs he hadn't touched in months. Music had always been his escape, a way to drown out the loneliness of the station. And now he hoped it could bridge the gap between him and Zarael, his unexpected alien wife. Zarael sat cross-legged on the floor, her silver skin shimmering in the dim light. She was meditating, her fiery red hair cascading down her back like a cascade of embers. Jake watched her, struck by her calm strength, a contrast to the chaos of their situation. They had 48 hours until the Galactic Marriage Bureau's inspection, and they needed to convince the officials their marriage was real, or Zarael would lose everything. Hey, Zarael, Jake said, breaking the silence. Does Thalarin have music? She opened her violet eyes, tilting her head. Yes, music is sacred to us. We use crystal instruments to create harmonies that honor our gods and ancestors. It guides our spirits. Jake nodded, intrigued. Humans love music too, but we use it for all sorts of things, parties, heartbreak, even just to feel something. Want to hear some? Her lips curved slightly. I would like that. Jake scrolled through his playlist and picked a classic rock song, its guitar riffs filling the cramped quarters. Zarael's eyes widened, her body swaying to the beat. This is vibrant. It stirs the blood. He grinned. That's rock music for you. It's all about energy. Want to hear something softer? He switched to a soulful ballad, the melody slow and haunting. Zarael closed her eyes, absorbing the sound. This speaks to the heart. It is beautiful. Jake felt a warmth in his chest. Yeah, music's like that. It's a language anyone can understand. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. What is this song about? It's about love, Jake said, a bit sheepish. Losing it, finding it, all that stuff. Tharael nadi thoughtfully. On Thalarin, our songs often tell of duty and sacrifice. But I think I prefer this human way of singing about love. They spent the next hour trading music. Jake played jazz, pop, and even a country tune, laughing when Zarael wrinkled her nose at the twang. In return, she hummed a Thalarin lullaby, her voice rich and melodic, resonating like a crystal chime. Jake recorded it on his communicator, mesmerized. That's amazing, he said. It's like your voice is alive. She smiled, a rare softness in her expression. Thank you. Your music is so varied, so full of emotion. It is inspiring. Their conversation drifted to their pasts, the music loosening their guards. Jake leaned against the wall, his voice quiet. Back on Earth, I used to listen to music to forget my problems. I had a girlfriend, Sarah. Thought we'd get married, but she left me for someone with a better job, a better life. After that, I couldn't stay. Earth felt too small, too full of ghosts. Zarael listened, her eyes gentle. I understand loss. On Thalarin, I was born into House Varen, one of our oldest noble families. My life was planned, training, duty, an arranged marriage to a lord. He was kind but distant. When the uprising came, he was killed, and I was blamed. I fled to save my life, leaving my family, my home. Jake's heart ached for her. That's rough. I'm sorry you had to go through that. She reached out, her hand resting on his. And I am sorry for your pain. But perhaps we were meant to find each other, to start anew. He squeezed her hand, feeling a spark. Maybe you're right. Rusty's voice crackled through the intercom, shattering the moment. Ah, you two are so cute, I might short-circuit. But heads up, inspectors are coming tomorrow morning. Better get your lovebird act ready. Jake groaned. Tomorrow? That's sooner than we thought. Zarael stood, her composure returning. We must prepare. The inspectors will expect us to show intimacy, shared habits, a true bond. Jake rubbed his neck. Yeah, like holding hands, maybe hugging. But we gotta make it look natural. She nodded. On Thalarin, we show affection by sharing breaths, standing close, breathing together to show trust. What do humans do? Jake's cheeks flushed. We hug, hold hands, sometimes kiss. Quiche. Her brow furrowed. Pressing lips together? Yup, he said, trying to sound casual. It's a big deal for couples. She considered this. We should practice, then. To be convincing. Jake's heart raced. Right, practice. Let's start with something simple, like holding hands. He offered his hand, and she took it, her cool, smooth skin sending a jolt through him. Her fingers trembled slightly, betraying her calm facade. Like this? She asked, studying their clasped hands. Perfect, Jake said, his voice tight. They stood there, hands linked, the air thick with unspoken tension. Rusty chimed in. Look at that. You're practically Romeo and Juliet. Wanting to play some mood music. Zip it. Rusty, Jake muttered, but he couldn't help smiling. Zarael tilted her head. Who are Romeo and Juliet? Old Earth story, Jake explained. Two lovers who couldn't be together, but loved each other anyway. Her eyes softened. That sounds tragic, but beautiful. Yeah, Jake said, meeting her gaze. Kinda like us, huh? She didn't answer, but her grip on his hand tightened. To prepare for the inspection, they decided to make their quarters look lived in. Jake moved some of Zarael's belongings, a glowing orb, a set of sharp blades, to his side of the room, while she placed his tools and a faded Earthband poster on her shelf. The mix of human and Thalarin items created a cozy, shared space. As they worked, Jake had a brainstorm. You know, couples often share something special, like a hobby. What if we sing for the inspectors? Show them we're connected through music. Zarael's eyes lit up. That is a brilliant idea. Music is universal. But what song? Let's create one, Jake suggested. Something that blends our worlds, like that lullaby you hummed. She nodded eagerly. We could adapt it, add human elements. What do you propose? Jake opened his music app, playing a soft acoustic guitar track. This could be the bass. Your lullaby has a melody we can layer over it. Want to try? They spent the next hour crafting their song. Zarael sang the Thalarin lullaby, her voice weaving a haunting melody, while Jake added chords and English lyrics about unity and hope. They stumbled over words and laughed at off-key notes, but slowly the song took shape, a fusion of human warmth and Thalarin grace. When they played it back, Jake felt a lump in his throat. This is us. Our story. Zarael's hand found his again. Yes, it is perfect. Rusty's voice broke the spell. Damn, you two are going to make me cry binary tears. That's some Grammy-worthy stuff. Jake laughed. Thanks, Rusty. Maybe you can be our backup singer. Pass, Rusty said, but I'll provide the beat if you need it. They practiced the song several times, their voices blending better with each run. Jake was amazed at Zarael's musical ear, her ability to harmonize effortlessly. As they sang, he felt a connection deeper than he'd expected, as if the music was stitching their hearts together. During a break, Zarael sat beside him on the cot, their shoulders touching. Jake, why is music so important to humans? He thought for a moment. It's how we express what words can't. Joy, pain, love, it's all in the music. Like when I was a kid, my mom used to sing me to sleep. Made me feel safe, no matter what. Zarael smiled wistfully. My mother did the same. That lullaby we used, it was hers. Singing it with you feels like honoring her. Jake's chest tightened. I'm glad we're doing this together. Their moment was interrupted by a buzz from the intercom. Rusty's voice was urgent. Guys, check the news feed. There's a report about a Thalarin fugitive. Jake's stomach dropped. He activated the holo screen, and Zarael's image appeared, labeled a person of interest in the Thalarin uprising. The report mentioned her presence on Nova 7, raising suspicions about her marriage. Damn, Jake muttered. How'd they find you? Zarael's face paled, but she stayed calm. My enemies are relentless. They must have tracked my ship's signature. Jake turned to her, his voice firm. We'll figure this out. You're safe with me. She met his gaze, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Jake. But we must be flawless tomorrow. If the inspectors doubt us, they could alert the authorities. He nodded, his mind racing. Then we make sure they believe us. Our song, our story, it's all real. They spent the rest of the evening rehearsing, not just for the inspectors, but for themselves. They practiced hugging, standing close, even a tentative kiss on the cheek that left Jake's face burning and Zarael's eyes sparkling with amusement. As they lay in bed that night, Jake whispered, "Zarael, do you think we can pull this off?" She turned to him, her voice soft. "I believe in us, Jake. Together, we are unstoppable." He smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. "Together," he echoed, and they drifted off, their dreams filled with music and the promise of something more. The next morning, they woke early, nerves jangling. They dressed carefully, Jake in a clean shirt, Zarael in a sleek Thalaran tunic that hugged her form. They ran through their song one last time, their voices steady despite the tension. Rusty's voice came through. "Inspectors are 5 minutes out. You got this, lovebirds." Jake took Zarael's hand, squeezing it. "Ready?" She nodded, her eyes fierce. "Ready." The door slid open, revealing 2 officials, a tall insectoid with multifaceted eyes and a humanoid with blue skin and tentacled hair. Their Galactic Marriage Bureau badges gleamed, their expressions unreadable. Jake Harlan, Zarael of House Varen, the insectoid buzzed. "We are here to verify your marriage's authenticity." Jake swallowed hard. "Welcome. What do you need?" The blue-skinned official spoke, her voice smooth. "We will ask questions about your relationship and may conduct a biometric scan to assess your emotional bond." Farael Stutol. "We are prepared. Proceed." The questions began. How they met, why they married, their daily routines. Jake and Zarael answered smoothly, their stories seamless. Jake described their breakfasts, Zarael's cooking attempts, and their evenings with music. Zarael added details about Jake's work and her efforts to learn human customs. The insectoid's antennae twitched. "Describe a shared activity that defines your bond." Jake glanced at Zarael, his heart pounding. "We sing together. It's how we connect, blending our cultures." The blue-skinned official raised an eyebrow. "A demonstration, please." Jake took a deep breath. "We prepared a song. It's special to us." They stood close, hands clasped, and began to sing. Their voices wove together, the Thalaran lullaby's melody merging with human chords, the lyrics a promise of unity. The room seemed to hold its breath, the music filling every corner. As they sang, Jake saw the officials' stern faces soften. The insectoid's eyes gleamed, and the humanoid's tentacles swayed gently. When they finished, a heavy silence followed, broken only by the station's hum. The blue-skinned official spoke first. "That was remarkable. I have not heard such harmony between species." The insectoid nodded. "Your connection is evident. We find your marriage valid." Jake and Zarael exhaled, relief washing over them. "Thank you," Jake said, his voice shaky. But the insectoid raised a claw. "However, we must address reports of Lady Zarael's fugitive status. We are obligated to investigate." Zarael's grip on Jake's hand tightened, but she remained composed. "Those claims are false. My marriage grants me immunity under Thalaran law." The officials exchanged a glance. "We will verify with the authorities," the blue-skinned one said. "For now, you may continue your lives." As they left, Rusty's voice cheered. "You nailed it. I'm proud, even if I'm just code." Jake pulled Zarael into a hug, laughing. "We did it." "Yes," she whispered, her arms around him. Together, that night, as they lay in bed, Jake felt a shift. Their marriage, born of necessity, was becoming something real, a partnership forged in music, trust, and shared dreams. But with Zarael's past closing in, he knew their fight was far from over. Jake Harlan stood in his cramped quarters on Nova 7, his palms sweaty as he adjusted his cleanest shirt. Across from him, Zarael, his Thalaran wife, looked regal in a sleek, silver tunic that hugged her athletic frame, her fiery red hair tied back. The Galactic Marriage Bureau's auditor was due any minute, and the stakes couldn't be higher. If they didn't convince him their marriage was real, Zarael would lose her noble status and face servitude. Or worse, capture by her enemies. You ready for this? Jake asked, forcing a grin. Zarael's violet eyes met his, steady and fierce. We are prepared, Jake. Our bond will hold. He squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her silver skin. Yeah, we got this. Let's make them believe we're the galaxy's happiest couple. Rusty, Jake's AI assistant, crackled through the intercom. Happiest couple? You two are cute, but I've seen more chemistry in a broken reactor. Auditors at the door. Showtime. The door slid open, revealing Thane Kors, a tall, gaunt humanoid with pale green skin and cold, black eyes that seemed to pierce through them. His Galactic Marriage Bureau badge gleamed, but his smirk suggested he wasn't here just for paperwork. Behind him hovered a drone, its sensors glowing red, ready to scan their every move. Jake Harlan, Zarael of House Varen, Kors said, his voice smooth but edged with suspicion. I'm here to verify your marriage's authenticity. Failure to comply will result in immediate annulment and deportation for Lady Zarael. Jake swallowed hard. We're ready. What do you need? Kors's eyes narrowed. Everything. Answers, actions, proof of your bond. Let's begin. They sat at the small table, Kors firing questions like laser bolts. How did you meet? What's your daily routine? Describe your partner's habits. Jake leaned back, keeping his tone casual. We met when Zarael needed a husband fast. Galactic law, you know? Now we eat breakfast together, listen to music, talk about our worlds. She's learning to cook human food, even if she almost set the kitchen on fire. Fels lip zwisha, asuplasmila. Jake is patient with my attempts. He works on ships all day, comes home smelling of oil and metal. I find it comforting. Kors scribbled on his tablet, unimpressed. Charming. But words are cheap. Physical intimacy is a stronger indicator. Stand together, please. Jake and Zarael stood, their shoulders brushing. Jake slipped an arm around her waist, his heart racing as her warmth seeped through her tunic. She leaned into him, her hand resting on his chest, a gesture they'd practiced but now felt natural. Acceptable, Kors said, but his tone was skeptical. Now a biometric scan to measure emotional synchronization. The drone whirred closer, its red light bathing them in a glow. Jake felt exposed, like the machine could see his nerves, his growing feelings for Zarael. He glanced at her, and she nodded slightly, her eyes steady. They held hands, their fingers interlocking, and Jake focused on the memory of their song, the one they'd crafted together, blending human and Thalaran melodies. The drone beeped, and Kors checked his tablet. Your vitals show compatibility, but I'm not convinced. Couples share something unique. What's yours? Jake took a deep breath. We sing together. It's how we connect, mixing our cultures. Want to hear? Kors raised an eyebrow. Proceed. They stood close, Zarael's voice rising first, her Thalaran lullaby haunting and clear. Jake joined in, his deeper tone weaving with hers, the lyrics a promise of unity across stars. The room seemed to hold its breath, the music filling the space with warmth. Even Kors's cold eyes softened, his pen pausing. As the final note faded, Jake's chest ached with pride. Zarael's hand squeezed his, her smile radiant. Kors cleared his throat. Impressive, but insufficient. I require further proof. Jake's stomach dropped. What more do you want? Kors's smirk returned. Akish. Public displays of affection are standard for human marriages, yes. Jake's face heated, and Zarael's eyes widened. They practiced a cheek kiss, but this felt different, more exposed, more real. Sure, Jake said, turning to her. You okay with this? She nodded, her voice soft. For us. He cupped her face, her silver skin cool under his fingers, and leaned in. Their lips met, tentative at first, then deeper, a spark igniting between them. The kiss was brief, but electric, leaving Jake dizzy and Zarael's eyes sparkling. Kors clapped slowly, his smirk gone. Convincing. For now, I'll report your marriage as valid. Jake exhaled, relief flooding him. So we're good. Kors stood, his drone following. For now. but I have concerns about Lady Zarael's status. He tapped his tablet, and a holonews report flickered on, showing Zarael's face labeled Fugitive, Thalarin Uprising. Zarael stiffened, but her voice was steady. Those accusations are false. My marriage grants me immunity. Korz's eyes glinted. Perhaps, but I'll be watching. He turned to leave, but paused at the door. Oh, and don't try to leave the station. Security measures are in place. The door slid shut, and Jake spun to Zarael. What the hell was that? He's not just an auditor, is he? She shook her head, her jaw tight. No, he's working for someone. Likely the Thalarin rebels who want me captured. Rusty's voice crackled. Told you this marriage gig was trouble. Korz's drone was broadcasting to an off-station server. Shady stuff. Jake ran a hand through his hair. Great. So, we're stuck here with a creep who wants to sell you out. Zarael's eyes blazed. I will not be taken. We must uncover his plan. Before they could strategize, the station's lights flickered and an alarm blared. The floor shook and Rusty's voice came through, urgent. Hangars on lockdown. Korz triggered a security protocol. You're trapped. Jake grabbed his toolkit. Like how we are. Zarael, you with me? She nodded, pulling a sleek energy blade from her bag. Always. They sprinted to the hangar, the corridors eerily quiet. The massive doors were sealed, red warning lights flashing. Jake knelt by a control panel, prying it open. I can hack this, but it'll take time. Zarael scanned the area, her blade humming. I'll cover you. As Jake worked, wires sparking under his fingers, 3 drones descended, their laser ports glowing. Zarael moved like a storm, her blade slicing through one drone in a burst of sparks. Another fired, grazing her arm, but she spun, cutting it down. The third aimed at Jake, but Zarael threw a metal shard, knocking it off course. Jake, hurry! She shouted, deflecting another shot. Almost there. Jake's fingers flew, rerouting circuits. The panel beeped, and the doors began to grind open, then stopped halfway, smoke rising from the mechanism. Damn it! Jake cursed. The system's fried. Zarael grabbed his arm. We climb through. They squeezed through the gap, emerging into the hangar, where Korz stood by a sleek shuttle, his drone hovering. Impressive, he called, his voice mocking. But you're too late. Jake's eyes narrowed. What's your deal, Korz? Why do you want her? Korz laughed, cold and sharp. Lady Zarael is a prize. The Thalarin rebels pay well for her capture, alive or dead. Your marriage was a convenient obstacle, but I've ensured it won't last. Zarael stepped forward, blade raised. You will not take me. Korz smirked. We'll see. He tapped his tablet, and the hangar's automated turrets activated, their barrels swiveling toward them. Jake dove behind a crate, pulling Zarael with him. Rusty, can you jam those turrets? On it. Rusty's voice echoed. The turrets stuttered, their lights flickering as Rusty hacked their systems. Zarael peeked out, her blade ready. We must reach Korz before he escapes. Jake spotted a maintenance bot nearby, its welding arm still active. Hang on. He sprinted to it, dodging laser fire, and reprogrammed its arm to fire a plasma burst. The blast hit a turret, disabling it. Zarael seized the moment, charging Korz. He raised his drone to fire, but she sliced it in half, the pieces sparking on the floor. Korz stumbled back, but before she could reach him, a shuttle door slammed shut, and the craft roared to life, blasting out of the hangar. Damn it! Zarael shouted, her blade lowering. Jake ran to her, checking her arm. You okay? A scratch, she said, her eyes fierce. He escaped. For now, Jake said, his voice hard. But we're not done. The hangar doors groaned, and Max, the burly pilot, appeared with a crowbar. Heard the alarms. You two all right? Barely, Jake said, clapping his shoulder. Thanks for the backup. Max grinned. Anytime. What's with the auditor? He's working for Thalarin rebels, Zarael said. They want me for my role in the uprising. Max whistled. Heavy stuff. You need help, I'm in. As they returned to the quarters, Rusty's voice greeted them. Nice moves, lovebirds. You took out drones and scared off Korz. I'd give you a standing ovation, but I'm digital. Jake chuckled, despite the tension. Thanks, Rusty. Zarael sat on the cot, her shoulders slumped. Cores will return with reinforcements. My enemies won't stop. Jake knelt beside her, taking her hand. Then we'll be ready. You're not alone anymore, Zarael. You got me, Max, even Rusty. She looked at him, her eyes softening. You risked your life for me. Comes with a husband gig, he said, smiling. She leaned in, her lips brushing his cheek, a gesture both tender and fierce. Thank you, Jake. He blushed, his heart pounding. Anytime. They sat together, the station's hum a steady rhythm. Jake knew Cors's escape meant trouble, but with Zarael by his side, he felt ready for anything. Their marriage, once a contract, was now a partnership, one they'd fight to protect. Jake Harlan crouched behind a sparking control panel in Nova 7's main hangar, his heart pounding as red warning lights bathed the station in an eerie glow. Alarms blared, and the floor trembled from distant explosions. Thane Cors and his Thalaran rebel allies had launched a full-scale assault to capture Zarael, and Jake wasn't about to let them win. Beside him, Zarael gripped her energy blade, her silver skin shimmering with sweat, her fiery red hair loose and wild. Her violet eyes burned with determination. They're targeting the central hub, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. If they take it, the station falls. Jake nodded, his mind racing. Then we stop them. I can sabotage their systems from here, but I need you to hold them off. She flashed a fierce smile. Leave that to me. Rusty's voice crackled through Jake's earpiece. Heads up, lovebirds. Cors has got a dozen fighters and a nasty EMP drone. You're outnumbered, but I'm betting on you. Mostly 'cause I'm stuck here anyway. Thanks for the pep talk, Rusty. Jake muttered, prying open the panel. Wires and circuits spilled out, a familiar puzzle. Keep the station's defenses online as long as you can. Roger that, Rusty said. Also, try not to die. I'd hate to find a new boss. Zarael darted toward the hangar's entrance, where rebel soldiers in sleek black armor advanced, their plasma rifles flashing. She moved like a whirlwind, her blade slicing through a rifle barrel, then spinning to knock out a soldier with a precise kick. Jake watched, awestruck, his hands working fast to reroute the hangar's power grid. Come on, he whispered, connecting a bypass circuit. If he could overload the rebels' EMP drone, it'd give them a fighting chance. A blast rocked the hangar, and Jake ducked as shrapnel flew. Zarael shouted, Jake, behind you! He spun, seeing a rebel aiming at him. Before he could react, Zarael threw her blade, the weapon embedding in the soldier's armor, sending him crashing down. She sprinted over, retrieving her blade, and pulled Jake to his feet. You good? She asked, her hand lingering on his arm. Yeah, he panted, his heart racing, not just from the fight. Thanks. Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. Focus. We're not done. Jake nodded, finishing the bypass. The panel sparked, and a low hum grew louder. Got it. Rusty, trigger the overload. Frying the drone now. Rusty cheered. A deafening buzz filled the air, and the EMP drone spiraled, crashing into a stack of crates with a fiery explosion. The rebels faltered, their comms disrupted, and Zarael seized the moment, charging into their ranks. Jake grabbed a discarded plasma pistol, joining her, his shots wild but effective. Together, they pushed the rebels back, their movements syncing like a dance they'd practiced 100 times. As they fought, Max, the burly pilot, burst into the hangar with a ragtag group of station residents, mechanics, traders, even a tentacle bartender wielding a wrench. Thought you could use some backup, Max shouted, firing a shotgun that sent rebels scattering. Max, you're a lifesaver, Jake called, grinning. Don't get mushy, Max laughed, blasting another rebel. Let's kick these guys out. The tide turned, Nova 7's misfits rallying behind Jake and Zarael. But Cors was still out there, and Jake knew he wouldn't give up easily. He spotted a hollow screen on the wall, hacked into the station's security feed, and saw Cors in the central hub, rigging a device to the core reactor. Farael, Jake yelled, pointing at the screen. Cors is gonna blow the reactor. Her eyes widened. We stop him. Now. They sprinted through the corridors, dodging debris and stray shots. The hub was a cavernous chamber, its reactor pulsing with blue energy. Kors stood at a console, his gaunt face lit by the glow, his fingers flying over controls. "Step away, Kors," Jake shouted, aiming his pistol. Kors turned, his black eyes cold. "You're too late, human. This station will burn, and Zarael will be mine." Zarael lunged, her blade flashing, but Kors activated a force shield, deflecting her strike. He laughed, cruel and sharp. "You can't win. The rebels will have you, dead or alive." Jake's mind raced, spotting a maintenance port above the reactor. If he could reach it, he could shut down Kors's device. "Keep him busy," he told Zarael, sprinting for a ladder. She nodded, engaging Kors in a furious duel, her blade clashing against his shield. Jake climbed, his hands slipping on the rungs, the reactor's heat scorching his skin. At the port, he pried it open, revealing a tangle of circuits linked to Kors's device, a crude bomb set to overload the core. Come on," Jake muttered, his fingers working fast. He rerouted the power, bypassing the bomb's trigger, sweat dripping into his eyes. Below, Zarael fought relentlessly, her movements a blur, but Kors's shield held strong. "Jake, hurry," she shouted, dodging a blast from Kors's hidden wrist cannon. Almost there. Jake yanked a final wire, and the bomb's timer froze, its lights dimming. "Got it," Kors roared, realizing his plan was failing. He dropped his shield, aiming his cannon at Zarael, but Jake leapt from the port, tackling him. They hit the floor hard, Kors's weapon skittering away. Zarael pinned Kors with her blade at his throat. "Surrender," she growled. Kors sneered but raised his hands. "This isn't over." "Oh, it is," Jake panted, standing. "Rusty, lock him in a holding cell." "On it," Rusty said. "Gotta say, you two are badass. I'm recording this for posterity." Max and the others arrived, securing Kors' station security, dragged him away. The alarms quieted and the hub's lights stabilized. Nova, 7 safe for now. Jake turned to Zarael, his chest heaving. "We did it." She sheathed her blade, her eyes locking onto his. Together, without thinking, Jake pulled her into his arms, their lips meeting in a desperate, passionate kiss. It wasn't like their practiced peck for the auditors. This was real, raw, a release of fear and relief. Zarael melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, her warmth grounding him. When they parted, breathless, Jake grinned. "I love you, Zarael. I know it's crazy, but I do." Her eyes shimmered, a tear slipping down her silver cheek. "And I love you, Jake. You've given me more than a contract. You've given me a home." Rusty's voice cut in. "Okay, I'm tearing up, and I don't even have eyes. You two are going to make me rewrite my code for emotions." Jake laughed, still holding Zarael. "Shut it, Rusty." Mux clapped Jake's shoulder. "Nice work, man. Station's safe, and you got the girl. Not a bad day." "Thanks, Max," Jake said, his arm around Zarael. "Couldn't have done it without you." The bartender, tentacles waving, offered a round of drinks. On the house. To Jake and Zarael, Nova 7's heroes. As the crowd cheered, Jake and Zarael slipped away to their quarters, the station's hum a soothing backdrop. They sat on the cot, hands clasped, the weight of the battle settling. "What now?" Jake asked, his thumb brushing her knuckles. Zarael leaned against him, her voice soft. "We stay together. My enemies may return, but with you, I'm not afraid." He kissed her forehead, his heart full. "Same here. You're stuck with me, wife." She smiled, her eyes warm. "And you with me, husband." They lay down, the cot barely big enough, but it felt right. Zarael nestled against him, her head on his chest, and Jake wrapped his arms around her. The station's future was uncertain, but their love wasn't. They'd fought for it, bled for it, and now they'd build it together. As they drifted off, Rusty's voice whispered, "Sweet dreams, lovebirds." "You earn him,"